It's Dukes and Bell, Sports Radio 92.9 The Game. I just got to tell you, man, I never thought I'd be talking about Texas and Georgia, and it's in the same conference. Right. I just never did. But with that said, the new SEC with the additions of Texas and Oklahoma, and to join us to talk more about this is our buddy Seth Emerson from The Athletic. He does a terrific job of covering the Dogs, and follow him at Seth W. Emerson. But, Seth, the SEC reveals these schedules last night, and everybody kind of goes crazy, right? I mean, it's like Bama fans, they've got to go to Oklahoma, Georgia fans with Texas. Tell me what your take is on this. And, again, we're still in the 8-game schedule for the SEC. That may turn to 9, but you know what? I think this is the way it should be with the additions of Texas and OU.
One of my takeaways, and I'm someone who's written that they probably should go to a 9-game schedule because of a number of reasons, and one of them being keeping rivalries, but also just it's a big conference now, and 8 games seems too little per season. But to see the schedule without divisions the way we did last night, to finally see it, I kept telling people this is coming. Georgia's schedule is going to look different when you don't have Vanderbilt and Missouri and South Carolina on it every year. And you don't have that in 2024. None of those 3 are on there that have been on there every year since 2012. And look how much harder it looks. And Alabama's in that position too, because they're sent off to Oklahoma because the SEC wanted Texas and Oklahoma to have a marquee home game each. And so they gave them the last 2 national champions out of the SEC. But who in the SEC last night did you hear? What fan base did you hear saying, "Oh, this is an easy schedule. This is going to be great"? I mean, if they don't have a big fan base, but maybe Vanderbilt was saying that. Maybe Missouri was saying that. Arkansas, I think, actually was one of those that skated a little bit. But otherwise, most teams are looking at it and going, "Ooh, this is ooh."
Yeah.
And part of that's the format changing, and part of it's just Texas and Oklahoma being in the league.
I guess I'm in the minority, but I just think my buddies that are Georgia boosters, you want to see the best competition. I mean, you want to get bang for your booster buck, I would think. And, some folks, look, the trip to Austin is going to be a lot of fun for Georgia fans in 24. That's one nobody wants to miss.
I think you're in the majority. I think most Georgia fans I see want a 9-game schedule. Everyone was disappointed. The Oklahoma game was canceled. I think what I heard last night, dissension from Georgia fans, was that the schedule was that you had to go to Texas and Alabama in the same year, and upset that they're not going to Texas A&M yet as planned. And then I also heard from people saying not enough home games, but they will actually have 6 home games because Georgia Tech plus 2 other non-conference games next year will be at home.
Seth, with the new no division formats, right? No East, no West. It's the 2 top teams that are going to play in the SEC championship moving forward in 2024. So Alabama wins the most games. Georgia wins the most games. Those are the top 2 teams. If it's Texas and LSU, those are the top 2 teams.
Yes.
That's how it's going to work, right?
Yes, and I would add that is another reason they probably need to go to 9 is you have less chance of messy tiebreakers coming in the more games you play. With the Pac-12 had a messy tiebreaker last year, and Utah got in and beat USC, and that was in a 9-game schedule. Imagine how much more of that would happen with one less game. But yeah, they have tiebreakers. They're ready with those. They're not ready to announce them yet.
Okay, because I know the Auburn thing was the big one. I mean, I hate to see. I know that it's maybe not the most passionate rivalry, but I just hate that something like South Carolina Georgia goes away because there's some really cool games in there. So are we just gonna be the vagaries of it? Or Auburn is in and everything else just goes away then, and you wait in the rotation.
Well, that's waiting on 9 versus 8 because now I could talk forever about the schedule, and you probably don't want me to, but it's been something I've been covering for a while. But the games on the chopping block, if they go to 9 games that these stay every year, are Texas and Texas A&M, Georgia and Auburn, Tennessee and Alabama, and then Alabama, LSU, and some of those others that we've kind of gotten used to. Those will only happen twice every 4 years if they stay with 8 games. If they go to 9 games, it'll be permanent opponents. You may notice that all those games were on there last night. which seems to be the SEC telling ESPN, look at what you will get if you give us more money for going to 9 games. I think that's that. The thing is, like, I did a section in my story on The Athletic on the headline on it, like on what's missing from this schedule, like what games aren't on there. And yeah, Georgia, South Carolina was one of them. Alabama, Mississippi State. Yeah, Georgia, Texas A&M. But those aren't going to be annual games anyway if they go to 9. They made sure. I haven't gone through every team and checked it, but it sure seems like for the ones that I have checked, the teams that will be permanent opponents in a 9-game format were part of the 24 schedule.
Seth, I know Georgia is on top of the college football world right now, but I started the show today and I said it's about to get more difficult to win these national championships. Yeah. You've got an expanded playoff, which means you're going to have to win more games to get there. You're talking about the schedule itself, and you just said it. Every SEC school outside of Vandy went, oh, crap, this is way harder than what we've had in the past. And I just think the path to get there versus what I'm about to watch in 2023 with Georgia's schedule and the way it sets up, they are set up to three-peat this year. There's no doubt they could get back in the college football playoff. 2024, I don't feel that way. And it's not that the team won't be good. It's simply the path becomes a lot more difficult.
If they lose on paper, the 2 hardest games at Alabama and at Texas, and thus don't make the SEC championship game, they would be 10-2 and still probably a 50-50 shot to make the 12-team playoff. Almost certainly wouldn't make a 14 playoff. So the expansion of the playoff, along with expansion of the SEC to bring in 2 harder teams and this harder schedule, it neatly coincides. I think there's a lot of coaches that would be up in arms if it wasn't the case. But beyond the bravado that you will hear from a Kirby Smart or a coach like that of, we want to play the hardest schedule, so we welcome this, blah, blah, blah. I think ultimately what they also kind of say when you give them the truth serum is, yeah, we might lose a game or 2 more now, but we have a little more margin for error as far as getting in the playoffs.
Right. And that's been my argument when we were getting hot and heavy. Some Georgia fans like, it's what Kirby wants. 8 games, shut up. It just seems like you're going to be okay because unless there's a big sea change in the Big Ten and they're not as top heavy, because almost every major conference is top heavy. That's one thing I think you could say about the SEC. It's more balanced, but you just touched on it with the expanded playoff position. Think of schedule is still going to win out.
Yeah, with Texas and Oklahoma in the league, I think the SEC should go to 9, but an 8-game SEC schedule, the average 8-game SEC schedule is going to be harder than the 9-game conference schedule in the Big Ten or any other conference.
Seth Emerson joining us, guys. He covers the Dogs for The Athletic. Check him out. Make sure you follow him. Seth, I want to ask you about how you felt about that expose that the AJC did. That in-depth piece about the citations that have been handed out since Kirby took over. I think ESPN jumped on board and kind of put out their own piece about it. Will it change anything? Will it change how they handle business there when you talk about, the speeding and all the citations that have been handed out? It was an overview of everything that's happened. Obviously, we know about what happened in January, but it seems like it's so much bigger than that. Is it going to change anything?
Well, I think it's hard to compare the number to what it is at other programs because that hasn't been done. So we don't know what or even the average population, if you take a cohort with the same number of people over the same number of years. So it may be around the same average as if you compare it to another team or another cohort that age. But the difference is that Georgia obviously had 2 people die as a result of a car accident where speeding was a factor. It wasn't the only one, but it was a factor. And that Georgia is the 2-time defending champ, so there's going to be more of a glare on them. So we're going to be taking a harder look at them. I talking to people over there, they're just kind of like, all right, we're taking our lumps on this as far as PR. But they've been doing awareness. They're talking to players. There's there's definitely also a feeling of like, look, we can't take away their car keys. Ultimately, when these guys speed, they're that's on them. Like, there's only so much we can do. But otherwise, I do think it would behoove them to announce some public suspensions. I do believe there will be. I mean, the denial on Morissette, because of the DUI, there's an automatic suspension there.
Right.
So that's at least one game, and it could be more because of the other charges that were involved there. I don't know why they can't announce that. I don't know if Jamon Dumas-Johnson is going to get suspended because his involved street racing. Marcus Rosemead-Jacksaint, his timing is obviously terrible because he's the most recent one to do it, but they don't typically suspend players for just a speeding-related arrest, even if 90 and a 45 weaving out of traffic seems like it would rise to the level of doing something there. But I think they got to say something or say that they're doing something so that they can tell the public that tangibly we're doing something. Because, look, they're having these guys run steps. All right,
Right.
They're reaming these guys out in private, but the public doesn't see that. And God forbid something else happens. God forbid there's another accident and someone gets hurt. It's going to reflect on the program again, and people are going to say, "Well, Kirby Smart, the school wasn't doing anything," and they'll say, "Well, we were doing stuff." And it's like, but no, the public didn't see that. So I think it would behoove them to do that, but I don't think they're going to. Ultimately, they're going to just continue to talk about they're educating these players. They're suspending them according to what the handbook says to do, and they move along. I've asked Jerry Moorhead, the president. I've asked the athletic director, Josh Brooks, about it. I've asked Kirby Smart about it. The three are in alignment. This has not exposed any fissures or anything at the school.
Well, we said this yesterday on the show, Seth. I mean, I'm not trying to sound melodramatic, but so Devin Willock and Chandler LaCroix's lives are lost, and it comes to nothing. Nothing comes from that as far as in the grand scheme of things. That they don't really kind of realize we do have a problem here. Does President Moorhead have any sway? I know Kirby's the second most powerful guy in the state, but is there anybody as far as boosters or the president that feels like, hey, Kirby, come on, smell the coffee?
Well, who's the most powerful? If he's the second most powerful, not really. I'm drawing a blank on.
The governor would be one, and Kirby would be two.
Okay, well, that's your opinion. But no, I think that they honestly, it goes back to they had a tragedy, and since then it's been looked into hard, and they say, well, we have this tragedy, we have that we're at the top of the heap, so we have this glare on us, but we're talking to the kids, we're trying to tell them about educating them about stuff, but that they're not really sure what else they can do or what else they need to do.
It's interesting. We'll see where it goes. Great job on the scheduling and the article you put out. Go check him out, guys, at The Athletic. It's Seth Emerson. Thank you so much for stopping by, Seth. We appreciate you.
Thanks, guys.